Good morning and welcome to the Midlife Switch group. I'm planning to share my new book as I write it, called Midlife Switch, and hoping that I can impart lots of wisdom to women who are coming up to the perimenopause and going through the menopause. But I did promise yesterday when I started the group that I would answer your questions. And in fact, I had a question from Caroline, who is living in Israel and currently taking some medication for osteoporosis. And she was asking if there's anything natural that can be done to help with osteoporosis. And so I thought I'd start this morning, as I've been on a course and been learning how to do online broadcasting, so I thought I'd have a little practice and talk about osteoporosis. It is one of the chapters in my book. I have written several books before on this subject, but I'm doing a research update, so I will be sharing that as we go through the book. But I thought for now I'd talk about lots of evidence, because we've had lots of experience dealing with osteoporosis in the clinic. So first of all, osteoporosis is a bone-thinning disease. It's actually a silent killer, and it affects a lot of women, especially as we age. And in fact, we're living so much longer than ever before, it becomes a big concern. What happens in our lives when we've got circulating estrogen in our younger lives is that we make as much new bone every year as we lose, and so we stay in even balance. As we approach the perimenopause, we start to lose more bone than we make, and by the time we get to the menopause, we can actually be losing up to 3% of our bone mass, and that can go on for about 10 years. There are obviously medications that people can take excuse me, to deal with bone mass, but effectively what's happening when you've got estrogen circulating around your system is you're making new bone cells. But when the estrogen dries up, then the bone cells go, it's like the factory shuts down. And we need to concentrate on ways that we can open that factory back up again. And my experience with osteoporosis started because we had, years ago, lots of patients who were going through the process of breast cancer and treatment, and then after they came out of that, they weren't candidates for estrogen or HRT. And so they came to see us to see whether we could help. And we found over the years that by helping them to include naturally occurring estrogen into their diet, and to do various other things, which I'll talk about in a minute, we were able to help them to make new bone. It didn't happen overnight. It took quite a long time, because usually you don't have a new bone density scan for 2 or 3 years. But what we noticed over the years was that at the first scan, they didn't lose any more bone. And by the second scan, they were making new bone. So it actually is possible to make new bone. And the way to do that, well, there are various ways to do that. There are several things that you can do. First of all, you need to understand that over the years, we found in our research that very often people have got low levels of particular nutrients. And that includes calcium and vitamin D and essential fatty acids. And all of those are important for good bone health. So sometimes we go into the perimenopause at a disadvantage because we're not in very good nutritional shape. So one of the things we concentrate on the program is addressing that and making sure people do learn to meet their needs nutritionally, so that they're at in the best possible place when they go into the menopause. But then you've got the fact that your estrogen levels are falling. And within each cell, you've got what's called an estrogen receptor site. And that is full of estrogen when you've got circulating estrogen, but it remains empty when the estrogen is gone. So if you're not taking hormone replacement therapy, you need to look for ways you can take naturally occurring estrogen into your diet. And those ways include foods that are rich in naturally occurring estrogen. So very often you've got things like soya products, and so in a 250 ml glass of soya milk, you've got about 20 milligrams of what we call isoflavones. And if you can take about 100 milligrams of isoflavones a day, little and often, through diet and maybe some supplements that are standardized, I have to say, then you can actually fool your brain into thinking you've got normal circulating estrogen again. And those estrogen receptor sites fill up. And guess what? You go back into making new bone mass. So you get new bone cells being produced. And instead of being in deficit, you can actually start making new bones so that you balance the scales again. So that's really important. Other ways to preserve your bones are doing weight-bearing exercise. That helps to make new bone cells as well. And so anything you enjoy, whether it's walking, dancing, doing anything that involves impact between your feet and the floor, or even if you're at risk of bone loss in your wrists, then to do some push-ups so you've got the pressure between the floor and your arms and your wrists. There are other things as well. There have been other trials. So some of the supplements we use for menopause at midlife have been through trials, and they show that they improve bone mass. So, for example, we use sometimes feminescence macropause, and that's shown in trials to have a 6% increase in bone mass over time. Obviously, vitamin D and calcium are important, and taking essential fatty acids with it is thought maybe will increase the uptake of calcium. So there are lots of different things that you can do. I will post something after this. I'll have to work out, I'm not very technical, so I'll have to work out how to post a chapter on osteoporosis from one of my other books so that you can have a look and see how you can self-help. Obviously, if you want any help, get in touch with me, because we do personal programs for people. But do feel free to send in your questions. I'm going to start sharing my new book next week. I stopped writing earlier on this year because my mum was very sick and then she passed away. So I'm just getting myself back into writing this week and picking up the threads of what I was writing. And so I'll share that with you, and hopefully you can help me get going again. And then as we go through each chapter, we'll be talking about that. And I will be inviting some experts as well to talk about different aspects of midlife, menopause, perimenopause, bone health, and so on. So do tell your friends about Midlife Switch, because I want to create a really big community so that we can actually get lots of wisdom flowing through that is scientifically based. And I really want you to benefit from that so that you can improve your health prospects. So that's it from me today, and hopefully you found this interesting. I'd love to hear your feedback, and look forward to coming on again tomorrow and in the next few days to give you some more information about midlife and how you can make the switch.